Zug. I am the Chief Strategy and Growth Officer from Avatria. I've been in the digital space for about 25 years now, so been around for a long time doing this stuff, working with clients like Grainger, Sonapar, LiftMaster, and many others to help with their digital transformations. And I've got with me the smart person, and not another key, so he's not on the board, but I brought him because he knows everything. He's been in the space for about 15 years now, working with companies like LiftMaster, Levi's, Sleep Number, and Annixter in the B2B space. So let me tell you a little bit about Avatria and we can get started. So Avatria, our team specializes in end-to-end digital commerce solutions, from seamless platform implementations to strategic business orchestration and intricate data analysis. We're committed to empowering businesses to achieve their objectives effectively and efficiently. We work with our B2B clients as a trusted advisor and experienced guide in their digital transformation journeys. You can find us at booth 305 if you want to chat later. And we're going to have a couple of prizes today, so if you win a prize, you'll need to go there to pick it up as well. So we're going to talk about accelerating transformation and success in the digital age, and we're going to start with digital transformation. So digital transformation means many things to different people, but generally, digital transformation is a strategic initiative that incorporates digital technology across all areas of an organization. Every organization is going to approach it a bit differently and at a different pace. And that's completely okay. The important thing is that you understand that digital transformation is imperative to success going forward. You see, we're at a digital inflection point today. It's been coming for a while. So digital leaders, they initiated it. The pandemic, well, it accelerated it. And today, buyers, 75% of which consider themselves digitally native, I think we talked about that yesterday in the keynote, they expect it. So whether you ground your transformation in external drivers like customer expectations, or you're doing it, you're motivated by more internal things like becoming more efficient or achieving simplifying integration, extensibility, you need to do it. So first question for a prize. These are a few of the drivers. I've got a Yeti tumbler for someone who can name a driver that's not listed on the board. Anyone? Nobody wants a Yeti. Okay. As you can see, digital transformation is important. When you look at the fact that 69% of customers prefer digital product discovery to interacting with a person, and 83% prefer ordering online than interacting with a person. It's an important foundation to achieving your success measures. So let's talk about measuring success. Simply put, your success is how you define it. One of the very first meetings that we have when we meet with a new client and a new program is we'll sit down with the sponsors to talk about the transformation initiatives to understand what a win means to them. How do they define success? And we do that because the goals can vary based upon the organizational goals, what you're trying to achieve. For example, approaches for improving margin can be different than those for top line growth or share of wallet. It also enables us to reinforce sponsor goals in all of our materials and planning. So everything from the kickoff meeting through every status report and everything that we're doing, we reinforce sponsor goals in everything we do. Regardless of what these goals are, we typically find that success measures fall into three buckets. Growth, measuring things like increasing top-line growth or share of wallet. Reach, which is leveraging a digital-first approach to reach your underserved accounts, typically in the small and medium-sized businesses. And acquiring new customers, effectively using digital to expand your ideal customer profile, because now you can serve more with less. And the last bucket leverage, or becoming more efficient in your business, things like improving operational efficiency and customer self-service, which we've already mentioned, 69% prefer to interact with the brand digitally. All of these generally lead to higher customer satisfaction, and so your transformation makes you easier to do business with and aligned to customer expectations. In our experience, between these buckets, typically people will make the false assumption that growth is going to be the first thing out of the gates. In reality, what we see is increasing leverage is often the very first thing that you achieve from an organizational perspective, and then that sets up growth and reach as stage 2 drivers. Regardless, it's important to know what you're striving for and how you plan to measure it, because according to McKinsey, digitally mature organizations experience significantly greater growth, profit, and return on investment than digital laggards. Your digital maturity, as they reference it, has a significant impact on your pace of transformation. Digital maturity, just to define it, refers to an organization's ability to quickly respond to the developments and shifting trends in technology. The good news for brands just starting out on their journeys is this isn't a static constant. It can improve. If we look at overall digital quotient spectrum from the same McKinsey study, it's no secret that B2C leads the way and that B2B lags B2C on average. As we mentioned earlier, 75% of B2B buyers consider themselves digitally native, meaning their expectations in their B2B lives are at least equal to their B2C personal lives. They're going to gravitate to companies that are digitally easy to do business with, and you may be seeing this in your numbers today if you aren't one of the digital leaders to the far right of the graph. The good news is that within B2B, there's still a significant spread in digital maturity, meaning that there's still an opportunity to differentiate yourselves compared to your peers. For those who consider their brands to be the blue or the left of center gray, you have advantages today that didn't exist when the digital leaders embarked on their journeys. We like to call this the second mover advantage. Brands who went first did all the hard work, the trailblazing new ways of working, researching customer trends and behaviors, educating people on the value of digital, and trial and error, what worked and what didn't. In the B2B world, a lot of the hard work has been done. Adoption isn't the challenge it once was. As we mentioned, customers expect it. And following established practices will accelerate both speed to market and adoption. And the enabling technology has vastly improved. You look at the Expo next door and all of the different proposable platforms out there, you can see all of the different exponential improvements that have been made. It's far easier to improve incrementally now than it was 10 or even 5 years ago. All this leads to more streamlined, value-driven initiatives. The idea of a technical-only upgrade, which many of you probably have done recently or plan to do in the near future, those are quickly fading into the rearview mirror. Thanks in part to the effort of those digital leaders, a path emerges to create this second mover advantage. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ananda, who's going to talk to us about getting there.
Thanks, Mike. So now that we're convinced of what we need to do, we want to talk a little about how we're going to do it. And the good news for those of you who have been slow to adopt digital technology is that there's well-established blueprints and patterns for businesses to draw from. With that said, it's not enough to simply just copy the blueprints that your competitors who may be slightly ahead of you have already established and just follow in their footsteps. So the first step is to establish a roadmap. And at Avatria, we streamline successful projects through a four-step approach, strategically balancing innovation with risk management to refocus on foundational principles. The first step is to develop a roadmap which embodies three key elements. The first is actionable, so every roadmap item needs to have a clear plan for success. The second is tactical. Everything on your roadmap should be specific, and that also ties into being actionable. And the third is achievable. You need to realistically assess your current position, taking timeline, budget, internal skill set, and any external support that you have into account. And when building these roadmaps, we have a few considerations as well. And the first is time frame. So long-term goals are great, but for this specific type of exercise, we like to think on a time frame of 18 to 24 months. And that just makes things a little bit more realistic for this type of road mapping exercise. The second is incremental value, and that's certainly a buzzword, but we like to focus on the incremental part of that, which helps de-risk the initiatives. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then the last part, which I think might be the most important part, is that the plan needs to include all impacted parts of the business. We've helped a lot of clients do this effectively by supporting their change management organizations, We've also seen businesses exclude certain parts of the organization when they do this sort of planning, which leads to a lot of challenges later on in the project. All of this tends to be fairly nuanced and complicated, especially if you don't have a lot of organizational experience doing this type of work. And so it can be helpful to engage a consulting partner to help with this phase of the project. It sounds like it might be an unnecessary cost, but it's one of those things where you'll reap the dividends later because you started in an organized into a cohesive fashion. So with that roadmap in hand, it's time to put together the business framework that adds another layer of fidelity to your plan. And so if we're taking an incremental approach to technology, we want to take that same type of approach to planning the technology. And so now's the time to think about how this applies to your business. And we could do an entire session on this. I'm more than happy to talk to any of you who wants to stop by our booth later to dive into this or any other topic. But I've simplified it a little bit for the sake of this conversation. So the first part is obvious to the point of being a cliche, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times, not just in the last couple of days, but in your day-to-day. But you need to start with your customer journey. What's forgotten a lot of times in that cliche is that there's underlying business processes that support that customer journey. So for example, if you're trying to improve the operational efficiency of your sales team, you need to think about what the ideal customer experience is and how does that impact your sales team. The next part is what makes your business great, or what are your key differentiators? And so I'm sure you can all answer that question, why your customers tend to come back to you as opposed to your competition. But it goes beyond just being able to answer the question about what your key differentiator is or what your differentiators are, to applying that to the technology that your customers are using to purchase from you. And so if your customers love working with you because they can always find what they're looking for, then your digital commerce experience needs to have a rock-solid search and browse experience. If they're coming back to you because you have the best prices in the industry, well then you need to make sure that you're tightly integrated with your pricing engine to make sure customers are getting their customer-specific pricing, they can see their catalogs because that's the key part that's most important to them. A measurement plan is also a must, and it's really hard to justify additional investment into your digital ecosystem unless you can demonstrate results, and you'll never be able to demonstrate results unless you have the data to support that. So that's why we make sure that our reporting and analytics team is part of every implementation that we do, so that those metrics are a key part of the foundation of your digital ecosystem. From an automation perspective, it's obvious automation makes everyone's lives easier, and there's a number of easy automation wins like customer registration, reordered subscriptions, report generation, or anything that helps improve operational efficiency for you and your business. And then once you've put all that together, you can take your specific use cases, you can take your business requirements, and then you can prioritize them in order of business impact. The third step is to create a reference architecture. So this would happen in parallel with your business framework, and you'll want to begin that technical planning at the same time so that the two are kind of moving in parallel. The first step is to inventory your current systems and evaluate them across two dimensions. How well is that platform working for you, and how much do you need to keep it? So for example, maybe you hate your ERP system, and based on the conversations that I've had with a lot of you over the last couple of days, that tends to be a little bit of a trend. But if it's not feasible to necessarily replace it, well then we need to find ways to keep that as part of your digital ecosystem and work around some of the challenges that you're experiencing. Or on the flip side, let's say that your PIM, for example, works really well for you. Then we don't need to throw that out as part of the modernization process. We need to work on ways to keep that within your reference architecture because it's something that works well for you and your team. The key here is that there isn't a single best option for every category, and you should lean on a consulting partner who should be aware of all of the options within the universe of that specific category and help you guide and plan for that reference architecture. The approach that we find that works best with incremental modernization is a composable one, using composable technologies that allow you to assemble a digital ecosystem that works for you and your business. And again, it's specific to you and your business. There isn't one best way to assemble this type of digital ecosystem. And so if you want to talk more about composable commerce and how it might impact your business and how it can help you, definitely stop by our booth afterwards. The reference architecture should draw on the business use cases that you outlined in your business framework, and you should think about all of your customer touch points. So this could be your website, a POS system, an internal sales app, a mobile app, etc. And your reference architecture needs to enable a consistent omni-channel experience across all touch points because that's what your customers are demanding. So with the previous 3 steps in mind, how do you balance innovation with organizational risk? I personally am a big advocate for an incremental approach to modernization because it allows businesses to innovate responsibly while also minimizing the risk of creating gaps in your customer experience. It allows you to see the results of your investment faster and gives your customers a better experience faster. And this is where the prioritization in your business framework comes into play. It's important to understand the Pareto efficiency to balance cost and time with business value for each initiative. But this looks different depending on that initiative, right? So it could mean that you start with your low-hanging fruit, that you knock out a lot of those, and that improves your customer experience. It could also mean that you start with a bigger project that's a larger undertaking, but has a higher business value. The important thing is to lean on your consulting partner who should be able to help you guide and plan and sequence those initiatives. Doing it this way, you can take a more strategic approach to budgeting as well, where your total budget is inherently itemized for each item on your roadmap. And as we've discussed, this way offers a much less risky approach, but also improves your organization's ability to adapt and introduce changes. So for example, your teams may need to be retrained as part of this modernization. It gives you time to do that. Your customers may need more education on the new process, the new functionality. It gives your customers time to consume the changes rather than throwing everything at them and changing how they do business, being a customer of a B2B organization. When you work incrementally, you can sequence those activities out and manage the change management in a much more realistic way. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about specific technology that can accelerate your path to success for any digital transformation project. And we've short-circuited a lot of the steps that we just talked about and built an accelerator that we call Zocalo. Its benefits are threefold. The first of which is that it simplifies your modernization. It offers a foundation and a starting point for your reference architecture. We also have pre-built interconnectivity between platforms. We believe as an organization that especially in the composable space, but really any sort of commerce implementation or digital ecosystem, that you're only as strong as the connection between your platforms, and they need to talk and communicate amongst themselves so that you can put forward the best customer experience. It also increases your speed to value, and you'll start seeing results earlier than you thought could be possible. We've pre-composed the ecosystem by building an enterprise-grade API that helps serve as that connective tissue between the platforms. It's also an efficient way to use your budget. You'll only pay for what you need. And lastly, Zocalo is incremental at its core. We built it knowing that customers would want to minimize the risk of their modernization. And so you can incrementally add high-value use cases in priority order that we just talked about. And Zocalo can either replace your current architecture, or it can be stood up in parallel with your architecture and augment your legacy solution. So we wanted to take a minute just to talk about an example of this in practice. And so Amorcare Royal is one of our customers, and they're an example of this type of migration that's built on the Zocalo framework. They're a billion-dollar company in the food service supply space. And we were charged with implementing a solution that provided value-added capabilities quickly. We were able to migrate them to Zocalo in just 3 months, and that had a host of business benefits. After we launched the platform, ACR saw a huge decrease in CSR touchpoints, which demonstrates an ease of customer use. And they also saw a 25% increase in category mix, meaning customers were buying across product categories at an increased rate. Customers were also able to process returns much faster. And while these were the relevant KPIs for ACR, the KPI lift that could be realized can be realized across any of your business priorities. This is just what ACR chose to prioritize for the first phase of their project. So Jeff DeSandra is the CIO of ACR. He's also our primary stakeholder on the project. And in his words, the platform allows us to replace many existing systems, unify our B2B and B2C solutions, and automate order fulfillment process. This has reduced manual work and allowed us to supercharge scalability. We are really proud of the work that we did for ACR and continue to do for them because it embodies a lot of our core principles, and ACR has been a really great partner in that journey. So we wanted to thank you for your time. As a reminder, we're going to be at booth 305, so if you want to talk about any of this, I saw some of you taking pictures of different slides. If you just want the deck, I'm more than happy to just send that to you as a PDF so that you can have that for reference. And then we can get contact information from the event. So thank you everyone for your time.